Welcome to Her Life Unscripted podcast, inspiring burnt out, stressed out, and stretched thin women to embrace the unscriptedness of life. Hosted by Anna Osborne.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Her Life Unscripted, episode 25. I am simply overjoyed to be here with you today because I get to share an interview with you with somebody who I just think the world of and just have such respect and admiration for the work that she does and the transformative nature of the relationships she builds, and not only with the clients she works with, but the therapist she does coaching with, and she's just amazing. Her name is Mari Lee, and she is not only a licensed marriage and family therapist, she's also a certified sex addiction therapist. And so she does just really amazing healing work with male and female sex, love, and pornography addicts, as well as groundbreaking work with spouses and partners of sex addicts. She owns Growth Counseling Services, a private practice recovery center in Glendora, California, and she is a popular national conference speaker, a workshop teacher. She's a co-author to a best-selling book, Facing Heartbreak: Steps to Recovery for Partners of Sex Addicts, and she also works a lot with therapists and clinicians to support them as they grow their businesses and just really create more profound change and significant ripple effects of just healing in their wake. And that's something that she does just so passionately. So she also is known as the counselor's coach and does that work in terms of supporting other clinicians in growing their private practices and really being able to have a farther, more extended reach in being able to help more people and change more lives. So Mari is on the show today, and we had an absolutely amazing time recording the episode. And I am going to tell you that there is some explicit words used in this episode, and I'm not a big cusser, but when it needs to come out, it comes out. And so I think I'm the one that dropped that first F-bomb, but I'm telling you, put in some earbuds if you have little ones around, because as we move into the interview, it happened. And so I'm giving you the heads up. So sorry, Mom, there is an F word or two or three in this episode, but it really is part of the conversation that we have that's just so amazing. And so Mari really is coming on today and talking about the gift in the wound, which I will let her share about because it's something that is so close to her heart. And she has so much passion around sharing what it's like to be able to really weave tragedy into healing. And I love her work, and I just adore her. So I know you guys will get so much out of the episode, and I can't wait to hear your thoughts and your takeaways from it because it's really, really powerful and amazing. So all of you, without further ado, here's Mari Lee. Well, I am so excited to have Mari Lee on the episode today. She is just an amazing, amazing woman that I really admire and am just in awe of her courage and her spirit. So thank you so much, Mari, for being on the episode today.
Oh, and I'm so happy to be here. I've been looking forward to this and looking forward to our chat.
I know. I'm really looking forward to it. And I had an opportunity before we started recording to be able to share kind of your more formal bio with the group so that they, the audience knows who you are and things like that. But can you share just a little bit about kind of the work that you do so that the audience gets to hear it from your lips? And then we'll kind of be able to dive into some of the fun topics that we want to talk about today.
Oh, my goodness. I'd be happy to. Sure. So I am a 54-year-old woman who has always owned businesses. I think I'm an entrepreneur in my heart and soul. I remember doing things like selling Girl Scout cookies and taking bottles in for recycling and babysitting and making up flyers to do gardening work ever since I was a little girl. So that has carried over all of my adult life. And I am currently, my business that I'm in is I'm a psychotherapist, and I work with, my specialization is as a sex addiction therapist, and I work with men and women struggling with sex, porn, and love addiction, and I work with the betrayed partners and spouses of sex and porn addicts. So that is what I do. In my clinical work, I'm also an author and a speaker. I think you know that, Anna, and I speak, very fortunate to speak to groups of women all around the United States and therapists around the United States on various topics, some related to the clinical field and my specialization, and some related to my consulting work that I do. I'm also a coach and consultant for therapists and really love and enjoy that work as well. So that is me in a nutshell.
Fantastic. And I think, Mara and I met because she was part of, doing the coaching and consulting for business owners and therapists. And one of the things that just drew me to you was just your spirit of generosity. And I felt like you kind of transpire through the words that you share. And I just immediately felt like I could feel your character and your energy through those words. And so I think that it's so amazing that you're able to convey your spirit through the written word, because that's a gift. That's not an easy thing to be able to do.
Oh, thank you, Anna. I really, really appreciate that. I think that's one of the best compliments I can receive, and probably one of the nicest things I've heard in a long time about my work, and I want to thank you for that. It's especially meaningful. I think you know a little bit about my background in foster care at an early age, and I couldn't actually read or write until I was 7 years old, and was told that I might never really be able to read or write very well. And now I hold writing clinics, and I've authored a best-selling book and so forth. So my heart is definitely a writer's heart. And I don't know, I think just moving through authenticity in the words, and sometimes that's being vulnerable, right, in our written word, and sometimes it's just being real and throwing down some F-bombs and
absolutely,
and so I'm glad that comes through.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing that you were sharing when you were kind of sharing a little bit about the work that you do, and a question that I have for you, traveling around and speaking, what is unique about speaking just to women? Because through this journey of, launching the podcast and having women reach out to me as I'm sharing my voice and hearing theirs, it's been this unique experience, especially of, even though I know I have male listeners, because my husband tells me that he listens on his commute home from work.
That's great. I love it.
I know, it's fantastic.
Go hubby.
I know. But the majority are women listeners. And so there's this unique bond that's happening as I am speaking and women are speaking back. But when you do that in a live setting in the ways that you do, what do you notice is unique about speaking to a female audience?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. Thank you for that, Anna. There's definitely a difference there. I have spoken to all male audiences, and I have spoken primarily to all female audiences, and then a mixture. That's probably the audience that I speak to the most is a mix of men and women. There's also a big difference between therapists and non-therapist audiences, right? So I won't go into all of that. But I think that the very unique thing about speaking to a group of women is women lean in. They lean into the authenticity. They are looking for places to connect, Anna. And women today, we are jugglers. We are on a stage juggling many balls in the air. We've got hula hoops around our waist. We're balancing plates at the end of two sticks. And it's nice for women to come out of that role, come into a community of other women, sit down, be in some ways ministered to, not to sound too preachy or religious, but, just to have a chance to step out and hear an inspiring word and an encouragement. I love speaking to women about gifts in the wound and ways that they have found resiliency in their journey and how they've become the woman that they are. I'm very interactive when I speak to groups of women. I like to get out there in the audience. I'm not a speaker who stands behind the podium. I like to interact. I don't like to put people on the spot, but I do look for that interaction. And what's so neat is to see women begin to tear up or begin to nod or begin to really hug one another or look at each other. And the stories that I hear, oh my gosh, Anna, they are nothing short of miracles. We have amazing women, in our country and around the world that I have the opportunity to meet. And I'm so blessed and lucky to be in the midst of these women. So every time I speak to a group of women, I learn something. I make new friends, I learn new things, and it's so beautiful to receive emails and feedback afterwards from the women sharing pieces and parts of themselves that felt very disintegrated that are now integrated. So, yeah, I think it's a very unique process speaking to groups of women and communities of women, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what you just said about women, really thirsting for that connection with one another. I think that hopefully we move out of kind of that middle school mentality where there is competition or that cattiness. But I know that, there's many women I've encountered along my own journey who are still healing from the wounds that have come at the expense of other women.
Yes.
That nurturance wasn't there, that kindness wasn't there. And so being able to be in a group of women and feel that connection from a place of love, not a place of judgment, is so healing. To change the story of what we think relationships with other women is like into something that is just so powerful and so healing.
Oh, I couldn't agree more with that. It's really true, and I don't know if that's part of your story. It's certainly my story of having sort of that. I was never a mean girl. That was never part of I was a shy girl, but I was never a mean girl. And I was really more of the girl in high school that kind of took care of everyone else. So I moved in a lot of different little cliques of people. I didn't really have, I had usually a couple of besties, but we would move. So I could sit with the popular kids or I could sit with the smokers out on the area that they met or the bad boys and girls. I just never really, or the nerds, I never really looked for that kind of clique. So I absolutely agree when women can come together, and that's one of the things that I love working with women on, and let go of perfectionism, let go of the competition. I think that negative self-comparison, right, is just the death of self-esteem for women. When we begin to compare and do that through a lens of, well, what about me? And she, she's doing better than I am, or she's an author, or maybe I should be doing what she's doing. We all have our gifts and talents. Everybody has their own unique voice in the world. And that's what I love, working with women and supporting women, finding that and coming together, because Anna, there is so much woundedness that I hear over and over again with women who have been really hurt by other women and betrayed by other women, where by the time they meet midlife, they're sometimes fairly cynical, right?
Oh, certainly. And I think that has been, it's so funny, my friends, my core group of friends that I'm still close with now, they've always referred to me as mom. That even if we would go kind of tell our parents we're spending the night at each other's houses, but we end up somewhere else, I was always the one who would kind of look around the room, kind of scope out the situation and pause and be there to kind of rein everybody in or take care of those that were kind of going different directions. And so they would say that no matter kind of what the circumstances would be, there's mom kind of keeping an eye out. And so that was part of it. But I think that for me, part of my process has been also very humbling in realizing there was ways that unintentional pain was caused. And so it wasn't necessarily being the mean girl, but maybe not having the courage to speak up or do differently in times where I look back and I go, gosh, I wasn't the one saying it, but I sure wasn't the one saying stop. And so being able to really kind of find peace with that, because you can't go back in time, but being able to find peace with how I use my voice now and the boundaries that I set around the relationships that I do engage in.
Yeah, I think that's really important. One of the things that I talk with women about is it's never too late to make an apology, ever. Even if that's a person that you hurt unintentionally or intentionally, right? A year, 10 years, whatever the years are, it's never too late to reach out and make an amends to that human being. And whether or not they accept it, who knows? But at least extending oneself and saying, I made a mistake and I made that mistake. And what I often talk about is let's own our shit, right? Let's really, as women, own our shit, because no one is perfect. I certainly am not. I have my good days and my bad days, my best human self and my not so good human self on my not so good days. But if I can go, and what I also say is if I'm not making an apology to somebody in my personal life, right, at least once a month, Anna, then somebody's not calling me on my shit, right?
Yes.
So if I'm not apologizing to my significant other or my bestie or my goddaughter or somebody, somebody's not being real with Mari, or I'm just not observing. And, I think it's hard. It's hard for human beings to say, I'm sorry, I made a mistake, and this is what I want to own. And will you accept my apology? I think that's very hard, and it certainly was hard for me. We don't want to think of ourselves as doing that. And so what I will say is once you practice that art of an apology, and it is an art, and you just begin to practice that, there's nothing like it. It feels so good to be able to do that and to circle back and let that person know, you know what, I'm not sure, but I feel like there might be something that ruptured in our relationship when we got together last time or when we had that experience together. And I feel like maybe I might have hurt you in some way, and I'm not sure what that way is. Can you let me know what that experience was like for you? And then we just listen.
Yeah.
We do deep, compassionate listening. We don't interrupt them. We don't try and defend our point of view. We really extend and hear what that human being has to say, right, about their experience. Now, sometimes when they describe that experience, it may not feel good to hear that, or they may be very angry and lash out, or they may have their own unresolved trauma or issues that drive their need to sort of, quote unquote, get back at us, right? And that doesn't mean that we have to be a punching bag for that person, but we can just notice their pain, set good boundaries, hear what they have to say, and then make a decision, well, maybe this isn't a healthy relationship for me. But regardless, it's important that we own our stuff and we make that amends and hear that other person. Or if we know what we've done and it doesn't feel good, and we all know when we do something like that, it's like, oh gosh, I could have done that better. Circle back and say, how you feeling? Could I have done that better? And hear what that person has to say. That's healing. That's goodness. That's how women connect. Women never connect, Anna, through perfectionism. We do not ever connect through our perfect stories, right? We connect through certainly our joys, but also our sorrows, our challenges, our oops moment, our fallibilities. We just don't ever connect through perfectionism. I don't ever look at another woman and think, wow, she's so perfectly beautiful and perfectly pulled together and perfect on all levels. I just would love to connect with her. Usually what will happen is sometimes we feel sort of less than or a little insecure. So when we can just be our authentic selves and the good, the bad, the beautiful, and the ugly, that's where women connect, right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And I think too that I kind of refer to it as the Janet Jackson apology, who I love Janet Jackson, but, think about Nipplegate all those years ago that, she kind of stood up and her apology was, I'm sorry if I offended you, and I feel like we're in this culture now where that is the apology that folks often go to first. I'm sorry if my horrific actions somehow offended, delicate you, rather than saying, I am sorry, period. There's no but, there's no justification. I am sorry that I showed up in this way. How are you with it? And how can we repair? Being able to really create a cultural shift around how we just apologize and how we do own our stuff.
Oh boy, isn't that really something? That is something that we practice and we don't do well and we stumble as human beings until we do better. And it is an important conversation. And I join you in that collaboration of creating a social mind shift around apologies. I really call it the art of the apology because it is an art form and we do stumble around. And sometimes we think that sometimes that is the best we can do until we learn to do better. And I think the way that women learn to do apologies better is when there is a wise woman who is receptive to apologies, right? So if a woman comes to me, right, and says, Mari, we had an experience together, and for the last year or two, or whatever it is, I was just really holding a grudge or not understanding or feeling really upset with you or making up all of these excuses, right? Walking around my house, talking to myself, saying, well, that's not how it went. But really, I've never come to you and asked you what that experience was like for you. And there's been this rupture, and can we repair it? And then that requires that woman who's being sought after, in this case, in this example, me, would be receptive to that, to say, thank you. I think that takes a lot of courage to come. And thank you for being able to hear my experience. This is how I experienced that. And this is why I was specifically hurt. And if that woman can hold compassionate listening space and respond back and say, Mari, I'm sorry. And more than that, Anna, not just I'm sorry that I hurt your feelings, but I'm going to own my shit. and I've been pretending like I didn't really know what I was doing. I'm going to be sort of blame shifting or la 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 la, fingers in the ears, not going deeply inside myself to realize that actually I did snub you, or I did ignore you, or I did say some unkind things, or I did sort of stir the pot. And I need to come around and do that. And thankfully, the relationships that I have in my life with women are, for the most part, by and large, are beautiful, beautiful relationships. I'm very blessed with the relationships. But on occasion, something comes up that we don't expect, and it can be hurtful. So I absolutely stand in support of that mind shift where we own our stuff, we make an apology, and we practice deep, compassionate listening. That's the formula right there.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I think that's such a powerful shift to have happen around us, because it is so freeing in that way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you said a moment ago, you're talking about the gift in the wound. And I would love for you to be able to explain that concept or share a little bit about it with the audience, because it's something that every time I've heard you share it, it's just, it lights me up and it gives me chills. Like, it's this like very, very visceral experience. And is visceral, that always has such a negative connotation, but I mean it. I don't know.
I love that. That's a good feeling.
Visceral can be positive, right? Can we have a visceral?
Yeah,
okay.
It's a positive to me.
We're going to use it today.
Sort of like in your, we're going to use it. It's sort of like in your bones, down in your gut.
Yes, absolutely. And so share, when you say the gift in the wound, what do you mean by that?
Oh, goody. Okay. Well, first of all, is it okay if I share what arrived yesterday?
Yes.
And how cool the timing was on that?
I know. And I was liking it and loving it when I saw it.
So Anna and I are in a group together. What would we call this group? We call it the Like a Boss group, and where we really support one another in moving forward projects and dreams. So maybe we're more like a dream weaver and dream supporter group of professionals. So that's a really fun experience. And so, Anna, I think you know that I'm currently working on a book and have been dragging my little booty along here, being that woman on the stage, juggling a lot the last couple of years, but making some progress. And I'm writing right now a book called The Gift in the Wound. And it's a phrase that I've been using, I think probably since my 20s. It's just been part of my lexicon for as long as I can remember. And what was fun is that a friend of mine who's a patent attorney said, Mari, you may really want to think about trademarking The Gift in the Wound, because you may want to do future talks on it, or perhaps a show, a TV show, or a book, or whatever you decide to do. And so I sort of put that off, and backburnered that. But I guess it was a little over a year ago, did get that trademarked. And yesterday, or last evening, checked the mail, and right before today's podcast interview with you, Anna, the trademark certification arrived. So I am officially the Gift in the Wound lady, right? And so anyway, just a little sidebar on that. But what that means to me specifically is, there's just not one of us, not one woman who is going to move through her journey here on the spinning globe unscathed. There will be something that we go through at some point in our life. And my early life was certainly not a smooth journey at all. I went through a lot of abuse and recovery and resiliency work and trauma recovery work, certainly in my teens and in my 20s. But maybe the listener right now, the woman listening, or the man listening, hi, man or woman listening, had a really smooth story, but they've recently gone through something that's been very wounding. Because of my clinical specialization, I work with a lot of women who have been deeply hurt, betrayed by affairs, sex addiction, all kinds of sexual deception. And they're hurting. They describe feeling confused and angry and shocked, and as if their world and their marriage or their relationship was shattered. And so it is impossible for any human being to go through their walk on this life journey unscathed. You will go through something that is wounding. And so the idea behind the gifts in the wound is not that we pretend like, we're dancing through a field of daisies and stuff down our emotions. It's to notice, I do feel angry. I do feel sad. I am hurting. I don't know how I'm going to get through this wounding. But to believe somewhere that you can move through that. And on the other side of that, there is a gift. There is a gift or many gifts waiting for you. So the way that I got into, would you like me to share a little bit about
Yes, please.
some of that? Oh, okay. So the way that I really got into my clinical specialization, Anna, was while in grad school looking for a thesis topic, and I thought maybe I'd do that on foster care or resiliency or teens who are out on their own early or, something along those lines, women in transition. I found out that my significant other was profoundly addicted to internet pornography. Nothing illegal, but just a lot of it, and a lot of it all the time. And I'm not a prude. I'm not a sexual prude at all. But pornography is just something that was really never a part of my life, and not something that I was ever really interested in dabbling, mainly because I'm an advocate against sexual trafficking, and a lot of that is happening in pornography, especially online pornography. And so it just wasn't something that I was interested in, or an industry that I was personally interested in supporting as a woman in this world. But he was profoundly addicted to internet pornography, and it was frightening to me and harming to how I saw myself as a woman. I felt like there were sort of nameless, faceless dozens of women moving through our relationship, through our bedroom, through our intimate time together. It really impacted my way of appreciating my own beauty as a woman and my own body image. And it was very challenging. And I thought to myself, and this was many, many years ago, but I thought to myself, I cannot be the only woman in this world struggling. And this was prior, Anna, to sex addiction as part of the vernacular in the media now, right? It's just part of our, but then it really wasn't. We didn't have a Tiger Woods or a Charlie Sheen or some of these people in the media coming out. And so I really had to search around to find training at that time, and went through the training to receive my certification in sex addiction, and started about a 2-year process of research and interviewed many, many women going through this process as well. And that was the basis. That thesis then became part of the foundation for my book, Facing Heartbreak, all those years later, right? So through that gift, so the gifts in that particular wound were, one, I came into a specialization that I deeply love now, that I believe is a calling in my life. I have had the honor and the privilege of working with hundreds of individuals going through sex addiction recovery, hundreds of couples whose, for the most part, relationships have been repaired and restored, and hundreds of women at my counseling center who have gone forward in their lives and created lives that they never thought were possible. And for me, the opportunity, the biggest gift for me, Anna, was it gave me an opportunity to go into my own therapy. And even though what informed my process of going into therapy was because I was so wounded because of his addiction, it gave me an opportunity to really heal old trauma and to discover new parts of myself, like these strong, creative parts of myself that could publish a book, that could speak. I was terrified of public speaking, but could go out there and speak to groups of women. So there were and are many gifts when we go through these wounded experiences in our lives. And when we go through healing the harder emotions, the fear, the anger, the traumatic emotions, because we need to gift ourselves with a process, that enables us then to move into really being able to say, you know what? At the time, I wasn't thankful for that wounding opportunity, but now I can look back and see the gifts in the process and the gifts in the wound, and that's what I'm going to reside in. It's a mind shift, really.
Yeah, and a very empowering one, right? Because it is so truly going through the healing that allows that mindset shift to occur. Because I think that oftentimes when people are at the very, very ground zero of the trauma, of the wound, they start looking for the messages, the gifts in it, but the intensity of it is still so high. The healing hasn't happened to be able to go to a mindset that is really puts it at peace, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. Absolutely. Sometimes when I'll be working with a woman who's just discovered her significant other is a sex or pornography addict, in the first few sessions, I'll say to her as we're beginning to build rapport and trust with one another, I'll let her know, one day you might actually be thankful that sex addiction was a part of your relationship. And I know right now you're looking at me like your therapist just lost her ever-loving mind, but there may come a time where you can look back because you have grown so much through this pain that you really are like a phoenix rising. And many times women do look like little owls in the room just staring at me like, yep, you're nuts, but they'll come back time and time again after the work, through an email, through a text message, through a card, or just coming and seeing me and saying, Mari, you were right. I went from that owl or that shaky little pigeon I was a bird with a broken wing to a phoenix rising. And I love that. I love seeing women move into their strengths. It really is, Anna, it really is the biggest joy for me. I think as women get to know me, what they really learn about me is that I am all about women coming along together and truly helping other women rise to the top. It makes me so happy inside. I'm happy when I see the women around me succeeding and growing and watching their stars shining. It makes me do a happy dance.
Yeah. Oh, certainly. Because seeing other people find that joy, find that success, it creates an energy for all of us. It's not and being able to really kind of bask in that energy, even if it's not in that moment our success or our meeting our goal, but having that energy around us and encouraging from a very deep part of our soul, that is energy that it does help us all rise up.
And I think it can be hard to trust that sometimes, right? For women who have been hurt in groups of women before, it can be really hard to trust and to understand if that's authentic. I think also, especially on social media sometimes, it can feel like, wait, can I trust that person? Is that a mask that they're wearing? Or is Mari being authentic? Does she truly care? Does she really want me to succeed? Is she excited when I lose the weight, get married, open the business, get the book deal, or just, take time on a vacation for myself? Is she genuinely happy? And yes, I am. I sure am.
Well, the way I think about it is that if everybody is moving to be achieving, whatever it is that they mark that, like you said, whether it's losing the weight or getting married or going on the vacation, that if everybody is moving towards that energy, then what that does for all of us that are also authentically encouraging and loving on each other while they do that is that it creates this culture around us of abundance. It creates a culture of encouragement. It creates just this culture where we want to be part of it. So it isn't seeing your success as something that reminds me of my lack of success. It's your success reminds me that I have an energy of people around me that all want the best for each other. And that's something that's felt, to the tips of our toes. And I think that's what it really speaks to me of seeing other people succeed is, yeah, this is really what we're doing. We all can do it.
That's right. And I would imagine there's probably a woman or two listening right now who feels like, that sounds great, Mari and Anna, but you don't know my story with women, or I'm an alpha female and I don't run with women, or I've been hurt by women, or whatever it is. Women are jealous of me, just these different pain points that we hear from women. And what I would say to those listeners is, I get it. And it is hard to trust. And maybe start with one woman who feels safe for you, and go on a walk with her, or meet her for coffee, or go on a hike, or do something with her, and start there and see if you can establish that relationship. Because we know as therapists, Anna, that women who have good friendships, and you don't need a lot of them, one or two, right? Women who have good, soulful friendships with other women, we live longer and we have happier lives. Part of that is because of the cascade of hormones, including oxytocin, that women produce, just like we're producing right now in this healing conversation that we're having. But when we can come together in communities of women, and even when we can be vulnerable, right, and say, oh, I'm a little jello, you lost all that weight, but I'm still feeling a little bit fluffy. I don't call myself chubby. I say fluffy, right? And I'm a little jello. That's okay as long as we can be vulnerable and express that. Again, women do not ever connect through perfection. We really need to think about, I thought it was interesting, right? No matter what anybody feels about Donald Trump, and I think it's almost impossible not to include what's going on in our political arena right now. You and I living in the U.S., it's pretty volatile, and we won't go into all of that. But whether you're a Trump supporter or you're not a Trump supporter, or you're a Hillary Clinton supporter or Bernie Sanders supporter, wherever you fall in that spectrum, I remember watching social media after Melania Trump gave her speech and all of the bashing that went on. And I think, just for the record, if it's all right with you, Anna, and you can cut this out if it's not, I'm not a Trump. Yeah, I'm not a Trump supporter.
No,
so
I have
I'll
to
just
pause
say that.
here because I think it's funny that the one thing, because on my little form that folks fill out before we do the interview, I say, is there anything that I can't talk about or that we don't want to discuss? And you wrote down Trump. So I love that you're bringing it up because that was the one thing.
Oh my gosh.
You put an LOL. So I think you were kind of teasing me, but I'm like, oh, Mari, go for it. I love when somebody brings up the one thing they said I couldn't talk about.
Oh, you're so sweet. Thank you. Well, so I will not go into any type of bashing, and this isn't the arena for it, but I will just simply say that is, and everybody can hang up who is a Trump supporter at this point, but that is just not a candidate that I'm going to put my vote behind. Then that's enough said. However, when I did watch Melania Trump's speech, what I saw in her face was fear. Mm-hmm. And that's the micro movement that I saw. I saw a person who was frozen. I saw a person who was very fearful. I saw a woman who was trying to do the best she could do under a great deal of scrutiny. And I don't know what any one of us would do in a position like that. I think it would be very, very difficult. Well, I think it'd be difficult to be married to him, number one, but I think it would be very difficult to step on the world stage and just do the best you can do. I don't know if she plagiarized or any of that. I have no dog in that fight as a writer. I certainly have thoughts about plagiarism, but I saw a woman who was doing the best she could, and she was very, very scared. And I was sad to see all of the bashing going on about her and the poking fun at her. And it especially made me sad when that comes from other women. And I get it. I felt triggered and activated around that too because of my feelings about Trump. But that's what I'm talking about. When we can really examine, the log in our own eye versus a splinter in another person's eye and really say, wait a minute, if what I'm saying right now, if what I'm contributing to the world's conversation through social media, is it kind, is it helpful, is it healing, does it need to be said? Then maybe I just need to shut up. Mm-hmm. If not, maybe I need to edit myself. And I'm hoping as we get through this political season, we'll see more of that from women really coming together and not doing this kind of bashing. I mean, on the other side, watching Hillary Clinton being called the C word, the B word, the H word. I mean, this is very tough. And a lot of this coming from women as well. Mm-hmm. So we women, it's so important to move together into communities. And I hope that happens more and more. I really do.
I do. I mean, I have a son and a daughter, as you know, and I think that one of the things as a mom of a daughter is being able to message to her through my actions, through my inactions, through my words, through my thoughts, my prayers, being able to model to her about women moving together. And when there are places of fear, of being able to soothe that fear rather than use them as a way to inflict pain. Because, even as you were talking, before you said the word fear, I had already written down it on my little notepad here, because that's what those, for me, when I have been in fearful places, that's when I move to a place of no, right? That I've been hurt. I will be hurt again. I can't trust. Like, that's all my fear talking. And I think, one of the things that I so admire about you, and I wrote this down too, is that you are probably one of the most courageous people that I've been able to interact with. And your courage is through your demonstration of vulnerability. And I think that as a woman, being able to know that our courage and our strength is through something that a lot of the world may see as a weakness is a very powerful healing journey, so that we move outside of that fear of when we have been hurt, and instead start looking for interactions or looking for examples of those positive interactions, those times that we have felt heard, we felt connected, we felt healed, rather than carrying around the bucket. And it's my own podcast, so everybody, I'm about to say an F word, is I call it the fuck it bucket. Like that we can walk around in our lives with all these examples and putting this bucket of there, fuck it, I've been hurt again. There it goes. And carry that bucket to where it gets so heavy that it drags us down. And our job in our own healing and the relationships that we heal in is to put that bucket down and pick up a new one to look for examples of times that we've been reassured, we've been comforted, we've risked and haven't been received well. And that bucket is so full of lightness that it actually helps us rise up rather than the other bucket, which drags us down. And that's the place that I hear, or at least it comes to me as you share what you just shared.
I love that. I love the fuck it bucket. That's great. That's great. Yeah, I think that, right. And then how do we put it down?
Yes.
Right. So that's the conversation, right? That's the deeper conversation that women want to have. They're craving, they're yearning for. Well, then how do I put it down? Mm-hmm. I get that I don't want to carry around my fuck it bucket anymore. It feels like a 500-pound weight in my hand. I want to lay it down. How do I do that? And so that's different for every woman. But some of the tools across the board that women talk about, and we know this, Anna, right, over and over again, is through journaling, through communities of women, sometimes through therapy, sometimes through exercise, right? Sometimes it's definitely for me through my writing. The way that I laid down a recent sort of bucket of pain, which was completely, unexpected and surprising and hurtful to me, a wounding that happened in the clinical world, in my professional world, that I just didn't see coming, didn't expect, was I wrote about it, mm-hmm. right? I didn't name names, I didn't point fingers, but I wrote about my experience. I talked about how hurtful it was and surprising and confusing. And I moved through it. And then I finally realized, after, half a dozen blogs or so, and moving through that and doing my own journaling about it and talking to my safe support system and girlfriends about that experience and my significant other, that I was done. I just recognized it just actually sort of recently, like, you know what? I'm just kind of done with this now. Bless them. Let it go. The door is open. If that individual or individuals want to come in and make a repair with me, it's open. It'll be open forever. But now I'm done and I'm moving forward. And it felt really good. And that's how we do it. Sometimes we have to cathartically talk about it in therapy, write about it in our journals, write about it not in mean ways, but in authentic, transparent, vulnerable ways, where whenever I'm doing a blog, and I'm always thinking, if I'm experiencing this, someone else is also experiencing this. So how do I speak to that human being while I cathartically pour out from my bucket of pain? How do I do that? Not in an accusatory way, but in a way to say, I know what it feels like. Let's move forward. Can mm-hmm. we please?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think that is that process of the writing or the letting go creates something that is, think about our feelings. They're so intangible in ways, yet they're so tangibly felt. And so being mm-hmm. able to create something that we can grab a hold of and then release, like that process is so powerful. And I think a lot of times underestimated. I know as a therapist myself, obviously I feel like one of the most cliche things that we can tell our clients is, okay, I want you to journal, right? And I will have clients look at me like, no, don't make me do that, and so it's being able to talk about it of why is it so important and what is this act of unleashing the wounds so that we can move through them rather than this idea that stuffing them or forgetting about them is actually possible, because I have yet to personally or professionally interact with somebody, including myself, that has successfully been able to stuff things to the point where they no longer exist. We can numb, we can do all sorts of things with it, but we've never, again, at least in my experience, have I met somebody who's been able to do it successfully without ever feeling it, just stuffing it.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that comes out if we continue to stuff, it will show up somewhere. Some people eat their pain, some people drink their pain, some people drug their pain, some people sexualize their pain. And so I couldn't agree with you more, right? The journaling can feel really cliche. And what I share with clients is think about it as you being a witness to your own life. Think about it as pulling the lens out and that you are scribing. In days of old, people hired scribes to write down the history of what was going on. That's how we have history, right? And so we didn't have the internet, obviously, so how do we become a witness to our own walk? How do we do that? Well, sometimes we go to journaling, and sometimes that journaling might just look like a bunch of profanity or artwork. There's no method to journaling. It's just individual. But the good thing about that is we create a timeline. And so when I pull out a journal, from 20 years ago, when I was in my mid 30s, and I look at that woman that I was in my mid 30s, I'm so proud of her. And I also have to giggle at her because she was kind of a know-it-all asshole who knew it all, who had it all figured out, And when I look at parts of my 40s, and the angst that I went through, or the 20s, I look back, but I see really brave and courageous parts of myself. And also I can see if I'm feeling afraid in my life, or I'm feeling anxious about moving towards something, I can go back and pick up a journal, and it frozen in time is that brave girl at 18 or 28 or 32 who actually did find gifts in the wound, who did move through heartbreak, who is creating goodness in the world. Isn't that something? That makes me so happy.
So right? Powerful, because that's the essence of who we are, right? Those touchstones of always being able to come back and go, throughout time, that consistently has been there, that brave soul that has found that way to rise above and continue finding however we define success around us, and knowing that that's always been a part of us, even when we didn't recognize it within ourselves. Like, absolutely powerful.
It really is. It really is. It's a gift that we give ourselves. So however any human being empties their bucket of pain and drops the fuck it bucket, whatever that process is, I don't think there's any coincidence. So if you're listening to Anna's beautiful show today, and our paths have crossed here, right, Anna and myself and you as a listener, there's no coincidence in that. And maybe this whole conversation is about your time now, you giving yourself permission to work through an area of hurt, to move through an area of unresolved trauma or anger or fear. Forgiveness is not just a decision. It is a process. We just don't suddenly decide to forgive somebody and it's okay. It's a process that takes time. And so if you are listening, then I hope that you'll do what you need to do to let go of that and create a lighter, more joyful experience for yourself.
Yeah, certainly. It feels like there's so many of our feeling words that we that I wish would become verbs. We use them as nouns or adjectives, but being able to have them as verbs, love, forgiveness, grace, like those as action words are ones that just the energy they create with them is just so powerful, because it allows us to be on the journey of loving and on the journey of forgiving and on the journey of being, full of and extending of grace, rather than feeling like it's just a moment in time.
Mm-hmm. We women, we need spaces to be able to have conversations like these, right? And I think we need tribes of women to be able to come together for weekends so that we can dance and we can raise a glass and we can swim in the oceans and we can hug one another and we can have heart-to-hearts and we can laugh and enjoy, each other's company and encourage one another and cry if need be and jettison the competition, because as what I know now, and nearly at 54 years old, is it is just not worth it. If you can really come together deeply with other women, and listen, I love men. I have amazing male friendships, and I've got a great guy in my life. I'm very fortunate to be blessed. I'm rich with friendships, but there's nothing like my girlfriends, right? I absolutely adore and cherish my girlfriends, and love making making new friends all the time. So if it's a foreign concept, ladies, that you're listening to, that's okay. Just know that there are wholehearted, authentic women like Anna and myself in the world that love creating these kinds of conversations and spaces for women.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I think that I feel like it's naturally, like following the energy of our conversation, it's naturally coming to this beautiful place of close. And so and obviously honoring your time as well. Is there anything else as we kind of move towards close that you want to be able to offer the audience? I think there's just so many just pearls and gifts that you've shared in our conversation, but any things that you want to share as we kind of move towards closure?
Thank you, Anna. Let me think about that for a moment. Well, I would say if you've never been in therapy before and it's something you've been curious about, know that it's not a relationship like you would see in the movies, right? Therapists are here to team up and create healing spaces and sacred spaces with clients so that you can move forward. I would say that would be an important gift. We've talked about taking a risk and leaning in, jettisoning competition and moving into relationship with other women. As far as resources go, you can always, I think you'll probably provide my website, but you can always pop onto my website. If, for example, if you're a woman going through sex addiction or sexual betrayal or had an affair, you can certainly go to my website and take a look, or go to Amazon if you like. And the name of my book is called Facing Heartbreak: Steps to Recovery for Partners of Sex Addicts. And there's some beautiful work that you can do in that book. If you're a therapist listening to our talk, hi colleague, hi friend. So glad you were here with us today. And it's a great joy of mine to be able to work with other business colleagues and support their practice dreams. And I've had a lot of nice feedback about my coaching work. So if that's something that you would like to look into, I think right now, what is today? And it's the 29th of July?
Correct.
2016. So right now I'm booked through October, but if you would like to, you can go to my coaching website, take a look around. If you're just starting off in private practice, congratulations, good for you. It's an exciting season. And if you don't want to reinvent the wheel and you would like to get clinical forms or group forms or exercises, I've got all kinds of great affordable materials on my website, and you're welcome to take a peek. But otherwise, really just enjoyed so much my time here with you and being of support to your listeners. And you're doing such a wonderful job in supporting women. I could not be happier for you, Anna, and I hope that we can collaborate on something. Wouldn't that be fun to put together a retreat for women, some affordable tropical retreat for women to come together for a weekend? I would embrace and welcome that.
Oh, I would absolutely, in a heartbeat. I think it would just be absolutely amazing. And I cannot thank you. I'm just truly privileged and honored to be able to spend this time with you. And I can't express enough gratitude. It's been amazing. And I'm just so lucky to have had this time with you today, Mari.
Oh, thank you again, Anna. Have a great weekend.
You too. I am just so blown away by that interview. It was so powerful, and listening to it back as I go through and edit the episode, there's just so many things that I took away from it and so many things that were powerful to me. But this idea of being able to spin tragedy and misfortune from straw into gold is it's such a imagery that comes to my mind as Mari talks about the gift and the wound, and that there's so much courage that is required in being vulnerable. And that we typically think of vulnerability as a weakness or as something that we have to hide away, but that when we really embrace it, it's actually our courage that allows us to connect and be vulnerable and to rise above and to heal. And I'm kind of just in awe of that time that Mari and I shared together, and just really, really am so excited to hear your guys' feedback and being able to just what you took away. I'm so curious about it, because there is just so much that, Mari talks about in terms of how we're just thirsting for connection, and that our healing allows us to connect with others and being able to really make amends with the wounds that happen, and not only with ourselves, but with others, and being able to really find that healing as a gift. And she's just a beautiful human being. So I am overjoyed to be able to have shared this interview with you guys. And I really do want to hear your feedback. So please send it in via the SpeakPipe app or to Anna@herlifeunscripted.com. And really, I'm going to include all of Mari's contact information in the show notes too, so that you can reach out to her as well, because she's just a loving, graceful individual. And I really encourage you guys to be sure to head over to the website right now to herlifeunscripted.com and click on the retreats page so that we can get you guys signed up and on the email list for when our live events are happening. And you heard Mari and I talk about some collaborations that we're thinking of doing. So it would just be amazing to have all of you there. So I really encourage you to head over to herlifeunscripted.com and click on the retreats page and be able to fill out just the little interest box there so that you will be able to receive emails as those live dates roll out and are set and all the information. So thank you just so tremendously much for being here with me today and embracing and supporting Mari as she shares her story and the work that she does. So I just appreciate you letting me into your worlds and into your hearts. And I'm blown away. All of you are so amazing. And I cannot wait to hear about the gifts that you found and you've discovered in your own wounds. Thank you guys so much. Take care.
Want to learn about the latest retreats, workshops, and speaking events hosted by Anna? Head over to herlifeunscripted.com to get in on all the juicy details. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review the podcast so we can continue to grow our amazing audience. Lastly, be sure and send in your voice feedback via the SpeakPipe app or to Anna@herlifeunscripted.com. We can't wait to hear from you.